Hey Stars and fans, it's Gloith here from Renegade Squadron. Today I kind of want to give you a little bit of heads up, is that this video was actually destined for yesterday. And you know what, things changed. There was kind of a development. And the post was essentially designed to get CIG's attention, because they had made this post on the 6th of October, kind of behind the 8 ball. We were busy with squadrons, we were busy with distortion damage, rocket damage, that it kind of went off my radar. Didn't even know that CIG really posted it. And it's like, okay, I want to make a post and hopefully get enough support through this video to hopefully get CIG's attention. But guess what? Even without this video, we got CIG's attention. So if you're tuning into this video now, just sit back, watch it, and if you agree with it, reply back to me in Spectrum, reply with your own ideas, and yeah, make sure to upvote this post, even though CIG respond to it, just because, you know what, we want to send a message to CIG, people like Chris Roberts, hey, this is really important to us. So with that, I'll let the video play. Hey Star Citizen fans, it's Gloith here from Renegade Squadron. As you guys know, we've been super busy with rockets, distortion damage, and even playing some Star Wars Squadrons. However, one thing I would like to bring up to you guys today is the fact that CIG back on October 6th did a bunch of posts talking about feedback from the community. And I'm going to take a little look at one of those feedback threads that I think is super important, because I think usually I'm a flight model guy, I care a lot about that stuff, and don't get me wrong, I'm going to mention some of that in this thread, but I think it's important to try and raise some awareness, try and give some feedback to CIG, because I think this post is super important. Let's take a look. Alright guys, here's the post I want to bring special attention to today, and that is about Arena Commander and Star Marine. Obviously these modes have been around for a very long time, and as a result, the CIG is looking for post-quarterly feedback on how they're doing, whether it's the game maps, the game modes, the rentals, the scoring, and even ship racing and the tracks themselves. So in this post, I actually went ahead and I left a pretty detailed post here, and I highly suggest you guys read it, upvote it, and if you disagree with it, leave me a reply. I think this is super important. If we can give good feedback to CIG, they can improve these game modes so that we can kind of keep growing our community rather than losing more and more people playing Arena Commander and Star Marine. So yeah, let's get into it. Alright guys, I'm going to go ahead and go over my reply to CIG on how I think they could improve Arena Commander and Star Marine. And I'm going to kind of use the format they did, right? We're going to kind of break it down by game maps first. So one of the things that CIG can just do right off the bat is just get rid of Broken Moon. It is just simply, for those that haven't played it, I encourage you just to play it once, and you will find out that it is absolutely blinding. Especially with the way the planet is. Personally, I don't remember it being that bright way back when, but for whatever reason, it is so blinding. It constantly washes out the UI. So it's just one of those things, the biggest quality of life thing you can do for Arena Commander is literally remove that map, if you can't just fix it. So that would probably be my feedback for that. We also need more maps. We need more maps that have got asteroids. I mean, I play Star Wars Squadrons and I can't tell you how much fun it was to weave in and out of cover, trying to dodge shots, you know, and Star Citizen doesn't have anything like that. It's just constantly this open space. There's very few asteroids, and the asteroids that you do have, they're at the boundaries. So half the time when you try and do that stuff, you run out of bounds, or your targets you're trying to shoot at that are running out of bounds. So that's kind of another thing, and that kind of goes to our next idea, is we really need a soft boundary, kind of a gray zone that's got a countdown timer, so that people, if they fly into it by accident, they know that, hey, they've got a limited amount of time to get back in the zone. And if you die in that zone, it should really be giving the player that hit you the most, did the most damage to you, the award, the kill, the points. It just makes sense. Star Wars Squadron does that on people running into boundaries, running it, you know, dying. It just makes sense. And then we also need an atmospheric map. And to me, this is so important, because atmospheric flight is supposed to be something that we're used to, right? We're going from the PU in space down to a planet. This is an important skill for people to practice their dogfighting skills, and I think that's kind of really where AC shines. It's about practicing it. It's about honing those skills, those combat skills, and it's just kind of sad that we just are missing an atmospheric map to really learn these types of effects, how to deal with drag, with wind, stuff like that. So I think it's super important that we get that. And then I think it's also important that we get an option at the end of the match, at the end of the map, to go back to the main menu or continue on. And right now there's just no option. And I think it's important, this is kind of more of a Star Marine issue than anything, is can we please stop spawning into the map geometry? I mean, I can't tell you how many times, you know, I'm not an FPS player, guys. I'm not. I mean, we've got people like Per Unit, Crick, Mega Ohms, and many others that, well, even FPS Maverick, for example, these guys are just amazing guys at FPS. And you know what? When you don't die, you usually don't have this problem that much. But if you're like me and you die quite a bit, well, you're going to be spawning into the map geometry quite a bit. So it can become really, really frustrating. So I think that's something that's really important. And kind of moving on to game modes, I think it's really important that we get private matchmaking. This is something that a lot of people like myself that do events really rely on, to be able to have these inter-org events, these org events against other orgs, right? Org v org events, to try and get everybody together. It's just a pain. I mean, the silly things that we've had to do is just, for example, we had a fight not too long ago, you know, against AZS. They're one of the largest, I would say, I believe Spanish organizations. And it's funny, we would have to load our group of 4 guys into squadron battle. They'd have to load their 4 group of guys into squadron battle. Then we'd have to load our second team in of 4, and then we'd have to load their second team of 4 in. So it's just like, this would be so much easier if we could just do a private match. So it's just something that, you know, it'd be really nice to get that back, CIG. We need a basic overhaul to the lobby system itself. This idea of trying to go through this list, half the time it shows them offline even though they're not. We really need to have a system similar to the main menu where we can go in, type a name in, send an invite to a squad, maybe squad 1 or squad 2, stuff like that. It would just help such a great amount to improve the lobby system, especially for such a social game like this. So yeah, really important. And then I think the one thing that I would really, really love, just a ton, and that is the option to be able to join on a buddy's multi-crew ship. Right? Have a lobby system that has got these little UI slots, similar to, I think StarCraft does something similar with, you know, parties and stuff like that. You could have like a little sub party for a multi-crew ship, and people can just join in right on the slots. You know what? You want to be a turret gunner, you can select that, right? You want to be a co-pilot, you can do that. Just some more slots so that people can kind of really learn this multi-crew combat in a more enclosed setting. Because, you know, obviously the PU is nice, right? We want the combat in the PU. We want to push that, don't get me wrong. But I also think it's good for testing purposes to really see how multi-crew ships handle certain environments, such as Arena Commander. So super important there. And we really need what I would call a ship selector UI. And kind of an important thing, I would like to be able to select at least 4 ships from an option. Hey, do I want to grab the Gladius? Do I want to grab the Arrow? Do I want to grab the Saber? Do I want to grab the Vanguard, right? Just, I want these options, and I think that's super important, especially for a game like this. And then I would say, well, we need round-based squadron battle. I don't know why we don't have this yet. I mean, this is, to me, I think this is a very easy win, because it's like one of these things that, hey, you have a squadron battle, you could have a good tactic, you beat somebody early on, and then now they're constantly coming back, and it would be nice to have these little rounds, multiple rounds, like, hey, you do tactic A, it works out, awesome, you wipe them out, right? And then, bam, you try tactic B, doesn't work so well, you get wiped, right? It's this fact that you can have this constant back and forth. It's just not this constant grueling process of shooting or potentially people just constantly farming the same guy over and over again to win matches, because that's actually what ends up happening, right? You've got players that are really, really good, and you got players that are average, and then you got players that are, not as good. And what ends up happening is it becomes a race of who can farm the lesser skill pilots in these game modes versus just shooting that one guy, killing him, and then moving on to the rest of the guys to win the match. So yeah, super important to get that. And then I would say we really need to have the lobby system capable, and I talked about this earlier, we need to be able to invite more than 4 players to a party. Nobody wants to be that guy and says, oh, we got 4, I'm sorry, you can't join. It's like, no, we want to be able to invite as many of our friends as possible to join us. And a person can say, well, what about the opposite team? Well, then go find some friends or play Battle Royale. That's the point. This is squadron battle. This isn't solo battle, right? This is squadron battle. So I think that's really important. And I think that kind of takes us to our next point is, well, we need a game mode that is pretty large. We need something that's got air, ground, and FPS. And to be honest with you, we need Tau. We really need Tau. Tau, I mean, I can't talk a whole lot about it. I can't. But all I can say is it was a lot of fun. We need that. We need something like that. It would breathe a lot of life into Arena Commander if we had that mode. So I also think there's also probably room to add another kind of big mode as well. Similar to Tau, we really need kind of like a fleet mode, kind of like Star Wars Squadrons does. So I've got 2 ideas kind of in my head. I'm thinking maybe a 10 versus 10, hammerhead fight, so to speak, kind of like you've got 10 pilots on each side and each team has got like an NPC hammerhead, and maybe there would be a restriction that says, hey, you can't use any ships with a size 9 torpedo, so you don't just instantly win the match, right, by just dumping that NPC hammerhead. But that way you got people dogfighting, you got people using different ships than just maybe a fighter to try and take down this hammerhead. I think that would be just a ton of fun. And maybe in this mode they would enable missile pickups with maybe repairs as well, because you don't want people just constantly suiciding the hammerhead to bring it down either, right? So you want to encourage people to live. And I would say if CIG are capable of implementing this, maybe even have a 20 versus 20 with 2 NPC hammerheads and 1 890 jump on each side. So the way I'm thinking about this is it's kind of like Star Wars Fleet Battle, right? You've got your 2 hammerheads defending your 890 jump, flanking it on each side, and fighters are coming in. In this case, players would have access to size 9 torpedoes and stuff like that just to try and take down the hammerheads, try and take down the 890 jump, keep the fighters off of them. I think that would be really, really fun. But obviously, maybe CIG would have to wait until they get torpedo locking, right? You can essentially, maybe there's a button that says, lock on to nearest torpedo or high threat missile, something like that, so that we can find these torpedoes, we can shoot them down. Not that things just get instantly killed either, right? So just another idea out there on how they could improve that. And then it kind of takes us to our next topic that CIG wants us to talk about, and that is rec rentals and rewards. And in my opinion, I think a lot of the rewards are actually fairly good. I think we get a lot of rec, and I think it more comes down to actually allowing us to use the rec store. Right now it's bugged, and I think if I look closely, I think CIG did say that they are working to fix this, so awesome. Let's I can't wait for that to get fixed. But I also think that rentals should be more like the persistent universe, right? Where you can buy multiple items, right? I can buy 20, 30, heck, I could buy as many items as I want if I've got the rec all at once. And it'd be nice if it was for like a week. You want to be able to buy things in mass. You're going to probably want to fit out your Gladius, you're going to fit out your Arrow, you're going to want to fit out your Saber, stuff like multiple ships. And it's just so annoying to have to go rent these items multiple times for just a single ship. Then you got to do the other ship. Then you got to do the other ship. It's completely unnecessary, CIG. Give us the option, just like the PU, to rent multiple items with a prompt in the event that we're trying to, rent 900 of an item, right? It just makes sense. kind of moving on to the next topic, and that is scoring. Right now, the scoring system is so incredibly broken. You've got essentially people farming a lot of the bigger ships right now, kind of like your sabers, your cutlasses, your Ray Lancers, a lot of the ships that are not necessarily as combat capable. If I'm in a Gladius and I kill a saber, I should not be getting very many points. If I kill another Gladius, I should get about a medium amount of points. And if I kill an arrow, maybe I get even more points, right? Because an arrow is the meta ship, distortion damage excluded, right? Distortion damage kind of tosses all this up in the air. Single shielded ships really get hit hard by that. So who knows, maybe that will change. Maybe the arrow will no longer be the meta ship. So it's one of these things that we kind of gotta take a step back and say, does this make sense? And right now it doesn't. So CIG just needs to kind of go through their metrics, and if a Saber pilot manages to kill a Gladius pilot, awesome. Now they get a bunch of points, right? We should be encouraging arrows, Gladiuses to be going after each other and not necessarily trying to point farm Sabers, Hornets, Freelancers, Cutlasses, stuff like that, right? We want to encourage them to go after more, stiffer competition, so to speak. And then I would say, and I mentioned this probably in the first map mode, is that we need a scoring system that rewards players for killing players, or at least forcing them to suicide, whether it's on a rock, whether it's pushing them out of bounds. If you do damage to an opponent and they suicide, you should get those points. I don't think it's fair that you do all this damage to somebody and then they just run out of bounds and you don't get the rest of your score, you don't get your kill. To me, that's poor sportsmanship. But I do understand that it does happen, right? A lot of people sometimes don't try to do it. It's just we don't have a whole lot of translational acceleration to try and counter that. So it happens. So I would say that, we really need a way to reward players for forcing these suicide or environmental kills. And then I would say that we'd really need to get leaderboards that only track time of players that have played longer than an hour. Because if you're playing less than an hour, you're really not getting a true feeling of where your placement is within Arena Commander. You could have one amazing match and now you're number 1 or number 3 or whatever, and you can just quit and you'll just kind of slowly fall, just very slowly fall. You just won't progress. It's one of those things that they just need to make it, hey, if you have at least an hour of playtime, then it's at least a good enough idea of where your standing is within Arena Commander. I think that's just really kind of how it should be. It also kind of gets out of these outliers as well. So I think that's pretty important. And then I think we need to get the leaderboards working for Star Marine and the Murray Cup, because right now they just don't work. All right, guys, we're gonna go ahead and now talk about ship racing and tracks. And I think there's a lot to unpack here. I'm not a person that does a whole lot of racing. I just don't. And there's a reason for that. And that is because and I'm not ashamed to say it, I rely on Google Maps a lot. I love the contrail arrow telling me where to go. I love it. And I like games that do this a lot, especially when we don't have a mini map. Yeah, I get it that remembering a race course track, it's an important skill. And you know what? Ace drivers, they understand that. But they also understand the shortcuts. They understand how to orientate their ships. But I think one way CIG can really get the average player like myself, who's a combat pilot, that doesn't really have a whole lot of time and dedication to constantly learn the maps, a way of understanding where we need to go. I think it's the first map they ever came out with. You know what? I understand that map. I know where to go in that one. But with other maps, when it comes to potentially even adding new maps or adding maps in the persistent universe, races, I should say, I think it's super important that we get this bright, it could be a blue, it could be whatever kind of contrail that is guiding us where we need to go. And to me, that's so important, especially considering we don't have that mini map, right? We don't know what the next turn is. We don't know technically where we should go. Obviously, we've got an arrow, but we're flying so fast already. We're not going to really see that a whole lot. It's just, I think it would make for a much more enjoyable experience for people like myself who want to dip our toes into it. Because you know what? Once we know the maps, once we're enjoying and having fun learning this stuff, the lines are going to be suggestions, right? Instead, you're going to be taking the shortcuts. You're going to learn, hey, I need to orientate my ship this way already. There's all this, there's going to be a progression here, right? So I think that's just really important for CIG to understand that we need ways to know where we're supposed to be going. And then I think kind of moving on, we need we need maps that cater to specific ships. To me, this is super important, right? I want to have races that encourage, straight lines. I'm going to bust the 350R out for that. We're going to have maps with just a ton of turns. I'm going to bust the M50 out for that. We got a match that, is probably potentially atmospheric. Maybe I might bust out the Razor for that, right? I want these maps that really kind of make ships have kind of a dominance in there within their specific map type. And this is kind of what I'd be super excited about, and I know CIG talked about this a long time ago, is we need a Mad Max style death race where we've got guns, missiles, repair drops, you name it. Obviously, we don't need a banana peel or a turtle shell. I get that, but it would be really cool to have this kind of stuff. So just how I think this would help a lot. And then kind of moving on, this is something that I add. Obviously, this is not a topic that CIG brought up in this thread, but I think it's just kind of, while I'm doing it, I'm going to just do it. And that's kind of adding, I put in another section called Other, and that is, we really need to fix a lot of issues. And I will call this the grievance section of my post. And that's, look, we got to get the desync fixed. The desync is so bad in Star Citizen. It's probably the worst I've ever seen since playing in Star Citizen version 0.8. It is so bad. I mean, I think we've got a lot of shield issues that are actually happening because of it. And I'll touch on that. Right now, there are 2 game-breaking shield bugs. The first one is you shoot at opponent's shields, and they drop, pop back up. Drop, pop back up. And this can happen 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times against the same opponent. And this isn't just some little MFD bug. They are literally regenerating. You can see this. I mean, I've actually looked at my own shields. I've got a buddy that, you know what, whenever he fights me, this always happens to him. He's like, man, your shields keep popping up. And can't blame it. It's an annoying bug because this happens when I fight other people too. Is against, I don't know if it's your connection versus another player or what, but what ends up happening is your shields will drop and then they'll pop back up. CIG has got to fix that. And then there's the other bug that's been around for quite a while now. I would say probably, I think since like 3.8 maybe a little bit earlier. And that is that there's a shield mismatch. So let's say, for example, I take your left shield down, your rear shield's down, even your right shield down, and I shoot you in the face. Your front shield's up. And obviously if you're using ballistics, there's going to be some penetration. But if I'm using a laser, and your front shield is up, and I hit you in the nose, the shield absorbs the damage. However, with this bug, and it's very common, is that the ship will say, oh, your left shield's down. You'll now start taking full penetration damage through the nose hull with a laser. It's like the game is detecting that the facing that has no shield HP is the front, even though the shield is completely up. And you will see people dying with full shields to the front to nose hull damage. They'll just die with shields up. It's a super annoying bug. It happens a lot when you try to position fight. I mean, if you try and face tank somebody, it kind of mitigates it. But if I would, let's say, for example, strafe to the right and try and outstrafe my opponent, really driving for a position fight, this becomes very, very noticeable. You'll notice very quickly that you're taking nose damage with the shields up in the front. So yeah, CIG desperately needs to fix that. We also need to take a look at weapon HPs. I mean, I think obviously eventually one day we want weapons to be destroyed. We want that to be a tactic. I can lock onto a weapon and shoot a weapon off. Yeah, makes sense. We want that. But there's currently another issue with the shields, that either the guns stick out too far from the shield and they're not covered, or there's a shield hold on the guns. And as a result, take the Gladius. If you could be the best pilot in the game, one of the best pilots in the game. And if you fly a Gladius, if you fight a decent aero pilot, your nose gun will be completely damaged. You'll be down to 2 guns in no time, simply because the nose gun got hit through that essentially an unshielded portion of the shield. It just got hit because it's right in front. And as anybody knows, highest hit chance of any ship in Star Citizen is essentially on the nose, right? So shooting the wings, shooting the cross section, not as much, but you're always facing the target in Star Citizen, and as a result, you always take nose damage. So you're almost always going to be losing a gun on a Gladius. And you'll also notice on a Saber, right, you'll just have a gun just fly off randomly despite the shield being up. They just need to buff gun health until they get these shield issues figured out. That would help a lot. And that kind of goes to the next section, right? We need to talk about ship HP. We've simply got way too little ship HP on the nose of our ships. I mean, you have to think about this. We kind of want, I don't know if you guys remember the old video back when the Cutlass first came out. The Cutlass used to disintegrate around the cockpit. The cockpit used to be the only thing left. And it was important because Drake's ships don't have ejection seats. So having a cockpit stay alive is super important. Yet people are dying all the time. I would say 90% of all deaths are from cockpit damage. That's crazy. That means you simply do not have enough hull HP on the cockpit. Our ship should be disintegrating. I should be losing wings. I should be losing my left wing. I should be losing my right wing. I should be dying to my cross, somebody getting behind me and shooting my cross section out. I should be dying to somebody shooting me in the face. To me, we should be rewarding players to look for ways of decreasing our opponent's combat, viability. Take those wings off and then take the gun with it. Maybe take out an engine. Maybe destroy them with the cross section. I mean, there's many different things that CIG can do, but we gotta buff that nose HP. It's important for Drake ships because they have no ejection seat, and two, it's really cool. You spent thousands, millions of dollars building these damage states, and it doesn't matter if the nose is the only thing that gets destroyed. So, I mean, that's super important. And then it kind of brings us to something that's really near and dear to me, and that is our flight model, right? The flight model, it doesn't know what it wants to be. It's one of these things that we're in this weird zone where we don't have enough translational acceleration to go forward to essentially catch up to a backstrafer. We don't have enough vertical and lateral acceleration to go up, down, left, and right to kind of knife fight around our opponents. But there's this weird amount of acceleration where we can still jitter and wiggle the pip to make aiming just frustrating. So yeah, we really need to look into how CIG handles translational accelerations and velocities. Take HunterNet, for example. What they've done is they've got a 60 UF mode, right? You've got a lot of translational acceleration in every angle, but they still, even in 60 UF mode, backstrafe is heavily nerfed, right? It's got the lowest amount of acceleration, and it also has its velocity, and I think this is super important. It's got its translational velocity half of forward. So what that means is that you can't back up as fast as you can fly forward. So it's easy. You're always able, as a push pilot, to push on a backstrafer and get around them. They either have to push forward and go side to side, but they can't just continue this backward strafe. They have to push forward, otherwise they're going to get outpositioned and killed. So it's super important that CIG does something similar, and we can see that from Star Wars Squadrons. They don't even have backstrafing in that game. Don't get me wrong, they've got retro, but it's just one of those things that when you force two pilots to push in, what it means is that they're stepping into this pocket. And because they're stepping into this pocket, there's risk and there's a reward. And there's a winner and there's a loser. There's not this constant two people facing each other and we've got two losers shooting each other in the face. It's just, this is the part about what drives people to flight games. We call this a flight model. We don't call this an FPS model. We call this a flight model. We've got to have positioning to have flights, so in my opinion. And kind of lastly, in my list of grievances is we really need to fix the FPS weapons being out of ammo. I mean, I can't tell you how many times, how many amazing moments that I've had, that others have had, that we just pull up, we're about ready to take the shot on somebody, and there's nothing. We're out of ammo. And we've got to either inspect the gun, or we've got to reload. It's just such an annoying bug. And yeah, CIG, if you can fix that, that would go a long way for both Star Marine and the Persistent Universe. Alright guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap up this video for today. But if you liked what I talked about today, make sure you to upvote my post on Spectrum. You know, it's really important that we get good, solid feedback to CIG. We know people like Chris Roberts, reads the forums, so make sure to post on there. Leave your own ideas on there as well. So there's a lot of also posts from Beta of Red on many other different topics as well from October 6th. If you haven't done so already, leave your feedback now. But with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up the video. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment on any of our videos made during the month of October. So if you haven't done any upvotes or seen any of the other videos, make sure to do that now, because you'll have an opportunity to win Star Wars Squadrons. It's another great game. I think it's super worthy to try and play that, learn it a little bit, because you know they bring a lot of good ideas that CIG could bring back to this game, and I think you'll see that if you play that game. So with that, we're going to wrap up. I'll see you guys next time. Renegade Squadron signing up.